I have the, oops, let me hit the share button. I have the notes in front of me. Michelle is not able to join us this evening for one more month off. So I'm going to do double duty tonight. So I have.
We'll talk slow.
Sure. So I have Shannon Strassman.
Here.
So, and to introduce yourself, I don't know if you want to say a couple words. Shannon is our new commission member from City of Fitchburg.
Yep, I am in District 3. I'm in seat 6. I just got well, I didn't get re-elected, but I got elected, and I was elected by the council about 8 months prior to that. So.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
And then I don't see Connie Hilla. I don't see Connie. And I saw James Roberts. Got the nod? Got it.
His mic must be off.
Yeah.
Okay, we just do the old thumbs up for any votes. We have Kate Cronin.
Present.
And Greg Miller, I don't see on by voice by chance. Derek Johnson, I don't see on. We have Terry Schnapp.
Here.
Mike Durst.
Here.
And Sue Mugendul.
Correct.
Perfect. We get enough for a quorum, so we'll keep on driving on this evening then. I did not have any public comments submitted to me. I'll take one quick look. They had right up until 7 o'clock to see if anybody had to say anything, and I did not get any messages, so there are no public comments this evening.
Public comments? Okay, then we could do, everybody get a chance to review the minutes from January 16th? Seems like a year or so ago.
Right?
I looked at them and I thought they were okay, so I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Great.
Thumbs up or
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes from January 16th are approved. Okay,
Hey Terry, I'm sorry to interrupt. The only thing I did have, do we need to amend the part about next meeting will be held since we didn't hold it? That was the only question I had on here.
I'd call it coronavirus mess. Don't worry about it.
I don't know the officiality of it at that meeting. That's what we said.
Right, that was our attempt at that meeting, yeah.
Yeah, I would even like the RIS.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I thought I'd better bring that up. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Chief's report?
Good. So can everybody see the chief's report? I emailed this out to you as well. Andrew, what were you saying about minimizing something or other?
You can reshare your screen. I unshared it, just in between things there.
Okay. Everybody see the chief's report?
No, you'll have to hit your screen again.
In my hand?
Share. Share. Go there. All right, my screen
Yes,
is green.
we're gone.
Perfect. So there's our chief's report from 2020. You can kind of take a look at the numbers there. We haven't met again since January, so you'll see our call volume, January, February, March, the first part of the year. I have no explanation for why we were exorbitantly higher. It truly felt like we were a lot slower during kind of that COVID outbreak than what really the numbers occurred. I can tell you, kind of as I have alluded to in the past, our no transport rates are up significantly. Really what we saw is people were, rightfully so, people were staying home, didn't want to be going to the emergency room, and after really, truly good assessments, we were discouraging people who really didn't need to go, not go. And even that aside, our call volume actually was really high. I think I had kind of mentioned it in some of the Friday briefings I was sending to you. We've actually seen the flip side of that thing in April now, where we're back to our normal, I would say, kind of actually chief complaints. We're seeing less of that upper respiratory system kind of complaint. We're still seeing them, but a lot less than what we were seeing. I think part of that is influenza season is hopefully a little bit past us. One thing we have seen, and you'll see down at the bottom when we look at some chief complaints, We did some PSAs with our senior center and with Fact TV, but I'm hearing it countywide is the calls we are seeing are fairly high in acuity. So we're trying to get back out there now and back to the people who, if you're having chest pain, you do need to call 911. If you're having stroke-like symptoms, you do need to call 911. Cardiac arrests actually popped up as one of our top 10 complaints in April. Which it probably, I don't know, call it a record number. I don't know how far to go back, but pretty significant number of cardiac arrests in April because people not going to the hospital when they should. So we've been trying to do some public service announcements. I know the county has done the same. So April was back down to status quo. I just looked at them this morning. May is actually probably going to be another negative month for us. So I think things are starting to level off a little bit. Still with this, we're still going to be at least probably 5 to 8% above where we were last year. So we'll see how things kind of continue to pan out. Otherwise, there's our numbers for us. They stay pretty steady. All of our fractal times are right where we want them to be. Missed nailing the May ALS Consortium training we actually just did. The second meeting was today, so that was actually some more coronary care stuff, so some heart reviews. We didn't do our May department training. Dr. Manchero, who's our medical director, actually just had their 4th baby over the weekend, so congratulations to him. He finally got a girl. So 3 boys, and they now have a baby girl. And Jen Christie has been putting out our new training for us as well, doing a lot of stuff with our new medications. As you can imagine, no events, nothing's been turning out in the community, and we're still kind of pending, even looking at lots of what's going on in the summer. With some of the summer events, there's some stuff tentatively scheduled that I've since heard is probably going to be rescheduled. So been really, just kind of staying in quarters and trying to keep our public not calls reduced. Average calls, day of the week, calls of the hour, it's pretty par for what we've been doing in our municipalities, just 1% here and there. So you can see our top 70% of calls. Falls finally topped back up over sick person there for about 4 months. So not that that's a good thing, but we're back in the falls and sick person. The rest of them are the same ones, as you can kind of see that flop those top 5 positions or so. With the exception, as I shared, their cardiac arrests were pretty significantly high last month, as well as overdoses. Seen actually a lot of those actually in the last couple of weeks even. Calls by station, still predominantly seeing most of the calls come out of that middle station on Marketplace. And that new station up there in the northeast side being the slower. As far as our financials go, this is the end of April 30th. We are down run income overall for the year. I'll actually bring that up at the end of the Chiefs report with that operating in-house operating budget that you got. But as far as aging goes and collecting, we're spot on where we should be. As far as our cash on hand goes, again, pretty comparative to where we were last year, or very appropriate. The only reduction we saw as far as our assigned balances go is for FAP funding. So we switched over to what we use for video laryngoscopes or video laryngoscopy. So we actually intubate patients and manage their airways. We previously had what's called an InteBrite system. Essentially, it's kind of, I don't call it a hands-off, but there's a blade we put in the mouth, and you actually stand back and you're doing it all via video. We're actually having some of them start to fail. Some of the video cameras needed some repair. Reached back out to the company we got them from. They had been since bought out by another company, and it was becoming a really significant challenge to get those repaired. So it took some of our FAP funds and kind of adopted what's now called it's called Vivid Track. It's actually the same system Sun Prairie uses, Middleton uses, and Deer Grove uses. So switched over to using that Vivid Track system. The blades are actually disposable as opposed to what we were using before. Had to be essentially not surgically cleaned, not sterilized by any means, but cleaned pretty good. So now those systems are completely disposable. The blades we can charge for the disposable, but what we had to actually purchase was tablets. So now the ambulances all have an 8-inch tablet on them with an attachment. They just plug that blade in there and then can actually intubate. So I actually took those because it was an unanticipated expense. I took the purchase of those tablets out of some FAP funds. So that's why you see that being different there. That's one of the uses of that. This is probably a good, the CARES funding, that's that money we got from the federal government government as far as kind of the COVID relief. I have it on the agenda later, so I will share kind of that discussion later as some of the discussions we had, non-quorum, non-voting discussions we had via email. But that's the true number we got there was that 24,000. So that is actually sitting in an assigned balance in our savings account as well. And then our assigned balances as far as post-retirement, that's the usual. We don't put anything into that. It just funds itself out of the interest at this point. So that brings those total funds to what you see on the page there. I threw a new line on here just to kind of make sure that we get to public recognition for some of the things we've got. So Compier Financial, it's a nationwide financial company. They have an office in Middleton. We actually received a $500 donation from them. Office Depot, apparently when you go there and you go to check out, there's a big pallet up front. People are asked or if they're interested in contributing a case of water to first responders. Once that pallet gets full, they call area first responders. We come get them. So Jeff and I took my truck one day and went and picked up 82 cases of bottled water. So not 82 bottles, 82 cases of bottled water. So we actually took that, distributed. Well, we actually took the first load, left it at the Fitch-Rona fire station. Got called a couple weeks later. Jeff went back and picked up another load of water, and actually brought it back to the two Fitchburg fire stations. So we are flush with water. For that should last us all summer long. And that came from Office Depot. ProServe came in and actually did a free station cleanings, cleaned our trucks for us with their steamers, with their sanitizing fogging machines. So they actually did a kind of a donation. They were going around to area protected services and doing that as well. So wanted to include that kind of a shout out to those people. One thing I didn't include on here, I think I should have been sharing with one of our medical directors. One of the challenges we faced with COVID is changing some of our protocols. And what we try not to do is because of upper respiratory infections, we try not to give nebulizers to those patients because as you can imagine, it gets down into their lungs and opens them up like it's supposed to do. But then when they exhale, there's this beautiful fine micron mist of COVID, right, all over the back of the ambulances. So what we've tried to actually do is, and there's some good studies came out of it, is essentially albuterol inhalers, little multi-dose inhalers that you would use for asthma with a spacer. Reduces that aerosolizing effect of medications. When I reached out to our sources, we usually get through Boundtrees, our medical company, as many other places found the cost was exorbitant for an inhaler. So it was just looking at it, it really was, I don't want to call it cost prohibitive, but cost ridiculous is what it was. So actually reached out to Hometown Pharmacy in Verona. Draw a blank in his name, Greg.
Gary Boggy.
Greg. Yes, thank you. So Greg from the Hometown Pharmacy actually has been super helpful with us and actually sold us the albuterol and the spacers at cost. So phenomenal. We've actually been able to put that on all of our trucks with some spares and have been using that to better protect ourselves. So putting the Hometown Pharmacy on there as well. He's been able to help us with some items like liquid Tylenol as well that he's been selling to us at cost. So a huge shout out to Verona Hometown Pharmacy that's been helping us out. Thank you. For our May milestones there, we got Sarah, Chance, and Ryan. So each one of them are Chance is Sarah, that's 18 years full-time. Chance, that's his 18 years full-time as well. He's got like 26 as an explorer and a volunteer, and Ryan's getting 13 years this month. And then those comparables are what we saw at the beginning of the year. I didn't update those. Those are just the annual numbers. Any questions on what you see here? All right.
How many cases of water you received?
How many?
Are you here? No, of the cases of water, do you guys drink bottled water at the stations?
Nope. So we primarily use that for fire rehab. I mean, if we're on the scenes as well, but that'll be used for rehab.
Okay, I was just curious where it went. That's fine.
Yeah, no, that's it. So this, are you still seeing it? Yeah, okay. So this is the in-house version of the operating budget that we share every month as well. Only you don't see usually the stuff that's on the side. You just get the clean copy, clean copy printed out for you. So the things that are spit math out there, that's what's on the right hand side. Here's what I was showing to you. So run income is actually down from April. So for the first quarter of the year, and so by the math, right, we're 33% through the year through April. We're only at about 30% of our collections. So run income's down about $130,000. Looking at kind of the month of May, that's a very similar trend. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, other than what I shared with you, that we're not transporting a lot of patients, even though our call volume is very up. We're not transporting a lot of them. So we'll still kind of continue to watch this. I did go through and took our 2018 and 2019 numbers, and I'm just going to start tracking it from here forward. What we get that monthly billing report of the things that kind of determine how we want to put out there that we're estimating 3,500 calls for next year, 3,600 calls for next year. When you put that number in there in the large budget sheet, it actually guesstimates, based on some pretty good past practice or past data, what we should expect for run income. So again, I went back and looked about 2 years. And so I changed those numbers to increase the amount of no transports that we have that we are not charging for. And you'll actually see that when we look next month at the projected run income for 2021, that rise is not nearly as high as what we're anticipating for run volume because of this. A lot of that third ambulance stuff, as I've explained before, when we do auto aid to neighboring communities, it's called a 10 Delta code, right? A high acuity chest pain. We've been called to other communities to help out. A lot of times that ambulance will beat us there and they'll say this is something we can handle and they'll turn us around. Well, that counts as a call. So when we put that out there, put it out there as a call that we get that we never get to the scene for. So I don't know when the last time those numbers were actually really looked at. So this is would be a good review for us, and we'll see that. Now we've actually ended Dr. Cronenfeld from the Dane County 911 Center. I was actually on that committee as well to look at that. A lot of data went into it to say, do we really need those calls? We're actually doing a trial period of not auto aiding those calls anymore and to look at some patient outcomes. But that number's in a state of flux. But I wanted to kind of make you aware that run income is actually down a little bit, even though call volume isn't up. Other numbers you see in here, I think I explained this. We just started doing this year when I listed contracted events, and now we don't have contracted events anymore. But it was really to separate out. We used to have that just kind of miscellaneous income, that it truly is miscellaneous income. Now I've specifically broke that out into contracted events. This is really just a pass-through. And you'll see the same thing underneath there where it says external vendor income. We assist Fitch-Rona Fire with buying gloves. We can get them because we do bulk purchasing. So I'll buy a case of gloves for Fitch-Rona Fire. It'll come out of our medical supply line, or previously it came out of our medical supply line and then fell into that miscellaneous income and kind of artificially raised our medical supply line item because we got reimbursed for it, but it really wasn't part of Fitch-Rona's supply line. So we separated those out starting January 1st of this external vendor income, and you see below that, I don't actually even have it listed below. This external vendor, essentially external pass-through. That's what it is. The money's just passing through. So similar to the contracted events, when we do that forecasting, it's really a pass-through. Now that line actually does come out of our salary line, but there's not a huge markup on it. So it's money in and it's money going up to pay that overtime. So it's helping. As far as wages and overtime go, we're at 33% through the year. The months don't always tie up beautifully about when that pay period hits at the end of the month. So we're pretty spot on for where we would expect to be for salaries, wages, and overtime with all of our other benefits here. The health insurance, it's 43%, though it's 33% of the year, reflecting at 43%. I don't want to call it artificially high. It gets weird because we are always paying for the month ahead. So we're paying when it crosses into January. It's kind of like the tail end, the beginning and the tail end of the year always get a little bit screwed up because it looks at we're paying for next month. So that is actually right where it should be. the rest of the things are right where they we would anticipate them to be. The medical equipment is at 104%, just means we've actually purchased kind of what we needed to already for this year. We actually purchased a new stair chair, which was in the budget, as our old one, last time they did the repair on it, said it's still okay, but it's 15 years old, and chief, you need to replace this, is what I was told. So I did fund that for replacement this year. And the accounting fees, that one would be so high because this was our big audit year, so we've actually paid for that budget. The only other stuff that comes out of there for accounting fees, I think we get stuff from the bank. I think that's the only thing we pay. So we're at 31% of our expenses at 33% of the way through the year. So we're actually doing okay. Any questions on any of that? Perfect. Do you have the agenda in front of you, Terry, there? Or otherwise, I got it.
Yeah, let's see. Chair's report, probably none. I don't think either of the subcommittees met. So let's get that. And then you're going to do an update on the MOU to the collective bargaining?
Sure, because we haven't met since January and quite a few things have happened there. So when we talked in January, we had our little committee together. I believe I shared this via email, but I just wanted to officially, as a meeting, make sure that everybody was aware of the information. So we had discussed, we met with 311 regarding the essentially creating an MOU for consideration of part-time paramedics, right? Remembering that our full-time paramedics are represented, our LTE paramedics are not represented. Between LTE and a part-timers and LTs are not guaranteed hours. So as we were trying to look into the future and see how we can staff additional ambulances and potential use for a part-time paramedic, to me the biggest hurdle that was going to get us there was wages and benefits, because part-time paramedics would be represented. We had our small group meet, we had their small group meet, we exchanged information, we met with our back to small group, sat down with Kyle as a representative of 311 with what our small group came up with, and we kind of listed a few things that we didn't really feel were negotiable. They felt they were, and so we walked away, which is fine. It's an MOU, so both parties can walk away. We, because they are part of the contract, I would anticipate, I know for a fact that when we start to negotiate our next contract in 2022, I believe, or 2023, that this will come up and we will have to revisit wages and benefits for part-time paramedics. But as of this point, that's kind of a dead issue. So thank you to all of you who helped me out, and we met on that a couple times, and we didn't come to an agreement at this point. Any questions?
Well, thanks for the update. Let's see. Okay, an update on the internship program again?
Sure. So just that was another one. Wanted to reach out when I talked to you in January. I kind of presented you an idea for an internship program where we would be bringing students on, matching them outside of the fire side of things. Just those interested in EMS, an EMS internship only. Essentially, I put the entire thing on hold. we once all of this kind of came out, we took everybody off the ambulance we possibly could. So we even actually had some of the fire interns from Fitchburg who were riding with us. We kicked them off as well. Right, we're discouraging police from responding to anything they don't have to. We're encouraging fire not to respond. And both of them, police and fire, are actually still responding. Police, for the most part, they're all staying outside unless they need to go in. It's kind of a no-brainer. That like cardiac arrest cases, they're going in, right? We understand this is part of our job, so they are going in and starting that care. But for the most part, everybody is just kind of staying away. So, bought us another year essentially to kind of even fine-tune our internship program that will fire off for next year. So I just wanted to update you with that. We talked about it last month as a great idea to move forward. We'll see kind of where we are at in 6 months from now. I don't know that we'll be in a better place, but students, even the students from METC, it was right just before spring break, we had 2 students riding with us. Both of their field times were stopped, right? No students were leaving at METC. We actually will have worked out a back to school, back to work program with them. So starting in June 1st, we will have paramedic students start to ride with us again.
Oh, okay, good. No, okay.
Yeah, that's not what's on my screen. Did Fact TV lose us?
Oh,
Oh, we're here. What was the question?
Okay, I was just looking at what Chad had up on his screen there. I was up there before and that wasn't my face anymore.
okay, thanks. Any questions?
Neither one of those.
Then let's go on to review and possible action on the dress appearance personal hygiene policy. This is one we discussed before now, right?
So you're seeing this new, but it did get mailed out to you about 2 weeks ago, I think it was. So this is a new revision. And this is actually even all redlined up from the one you got. I think I sent it out to you on Friday. There's only one real big change to this, but I'll go through it just to point out some of the stuff. So cleaned up some of the terminology because most of we were tackling policies and trying to clean them up. Most of them all say EMTs back and volunteers still from back in the days we had EMTs and volunteers. We're trying to clean some of that out of there now because Michelle, we also have an office manager who works for us and probably needs the policy as well. So I took out EMTs and left employees. And then did a little bit of tweaking here where it says all EMTs. I just changed that actually to field providers. One of the things when we start talking about the Alliant Energy Center and interns, so this blankets it now so that it's not just EMTs, it's not, Michelle doesn't have a uniform to wear, so it's all of our field providers. And then took out the specific listing of clothing because ever since then we have actually added they're allowed to wear shorts during a certain time frame of the year. We've got some different types of work shirts, so stuff that wasn't listed on here. So as opposed to changing this policy every time, all clothing that's not issued via Fitch-Rona must be approved by the chief and left it at that. That was actually just a cleanup item. It wasn't the intent to actually change that. And change the EMTs to employees because we do have other employees. The big change in here is right here under appearance number 2. So beards and mustaches must be neatly trimmed and well groomed. Before we had 0 essentially teeth in any policy or manual anywhere. That restricted facial hair on field providers must provide for the proper seal of an N95 mask. We had nothing in place that I could enforce that by. Again, kind of a no-brainer for your own safety. You probably want a seal on that N95 mask, but I couldn't really, truly, based on a policy and procedure, tell somebody you have to go shave that because I know you're not going to fit the N95 mask. So that was why we actually brought this on here. Other stuff I just fixed there in number 4, there is actually some language in the collective bargaining agreement that does address the damage or loss of, I believe, eyeglasses and a watch. So I actually changed that to our policy to reflect better what the collective bargaining agreement already does say. And the rest of that I didn't change. This was sent out to the same day I sent it out to all of you. I did send it out to our employees. Kyle did provide a little bit of feedback. He's actually the one that brought up the changing of the uniforms there. It's not specifically this and stuff. So if you remember, or for Shannon or anyone who doesn't remember, as part of our policy change and approval process, we introduce it here. The commission will approve or adopt the changes. We can make whatever changes you want. We'll send that out to the employees. The employees have a 21-day input period. If there's any significant input or comment, it'll come back to the commission to either change or consider, or at least consider it or make those changes. If I don't hear any comments over the next 21 days, it becomes effective. So I guess what I need is if there's any questions, otherwise an emotion to adopt the changes to the minutes.
I'll make a motion to adopt the changes.
I second it.
First.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the changes on the dress appearance and personal hygiene policy are approved by the commission. Next item was the emergency paid sick leave for non-represented employees, right? I mean, there's,
Yes. So this is part of that discussion that went around for the emergency paid sick leave. In a nutshell, I'm assuming most of you have probably seen this before because it did pass both of the city councils. Part of the Families First. I'm gonna screw up all the terminology. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act set forth some additional guidelines requiring employers to provide additional sick leave and some different reasons for childcare, a bunch of different things for employers to provide to their employees. It exempted all first responders. So what municipalities then did, as both of our municipalities did, was looked and said, we want to make sure we take care of our employees. Created some guidelines. It gave an additional, for what we talked about here in our group, and that's the MOU. I probably should have flipped it around on the agenda. We came up with an MOU that was kind of vetted through this body based on kind of the emergency nature of it to get it passed. Took all the input that we got from the group here without providing just open discussions and violating open records laws. With the consensus of what the group was, Terry, as the chair, agreed to it, signed off on it, as did Terry. And I'll talk about that next, just in case you have any question. Well, we can talk about it together. Essentially, what it does is what that MOU did is this, only because that MOU only addresses 311. It doesn't cover myself and Jen. So hopefully we don't get sick either, but we'd really like the same benefits that are awarded to them. So what you can see here, neither one of us are working from home at the time being. As I kind of updated you, Michelle has actually been working at home. We talked with her yesterday and the day before. She's actually going to slowly start coming back to work next week. She's probably going to come start doing one day, like probably some half days, primarily to do filing. A lot of what she can do with the accounting side of things, we actually did get her set up to VPN from home. So she actually has a laptop, and she's been doing a lot of our bill paying, accounts receivable, reconciliation stuff at home. Essentially what I'm doing is print, sign, and checks. So I can do that from the office, and then she's doing all the behind the scenes stuff. But what it does, so for Jeff and I, it says it provides up to 80 additional hours for the full-time staff. We offered them 96 hours. That's their 2-week time frame. For Jeff and I, our 2 weeks is 80 hours. Where that comes from is essentially kind of the back to work protocol once you are tested positive or you're exposed. And that would be, and it flip-flopped around, but it's currently up to, from the time you test positive or have a known positive or suspected positive, it's 10 days at home plus 72 hours being fever-free without having any treatment. Right, roughly 13 days. That's a nice, beautiful 2 weeks. That's why we said 96 hours for them, 80 hours for myself and Jeff. There are some criteria out there. So these 4 criteria actually do match what the city of Fitchburg did. They do not match what the city of Verona did. But it's kind of across the board. Most entities went with these 4 criteria. They still require you to seek health care due to a COVID-related either what I talked about. You've been told to quarantine because of COVID. You're experiencing COVID-like symptoms, and you're seeing a doctor, or your family is experiencing COVID and being told by a doctor to stay at home. So all of these things require a doctor's notice. I can't just say, Patrick has a fever today, I'm going to stay home and I feel better tomorrow and come back to work. So there's some criteria that are on there. Again, it does match with one of our municipalities. Must be done orally or written. It must be taken. For us, it's for an 8-hour increments. For our crews, we hold them 24. You can't decide in the middle of the day I'm sick and go home. Right? It's got to be used in blocks. Does provide documentation. I don't know why I put pay in there. That doesn't read us. So
That should probably be stricken, right?
Yeah, so we'll actually strike that. This isn't the original document, so I'll strike that from that one. It's not applicable to us. There were some different time frames based on the municipalities chose some different time frames. We did put an expiration date on it, so this does not, for us, for none of our entities, this does not go in our bank. This is a use for COVID-related purposes, or you take it back. At midnight on the 31st, we just put an expiration date on it because we have no idea how long this is going to last.
God forbid if it lasts even that long.
Right? We just thought in 6 months we don't want to have to do this again, just in case we do see that hopefully
Right.
resurgence that we hopefully don't see, but we're probably going to see. So it does expire at the end of the year. Should that come up? The only other thing on it actually, I do need to, there it is. I'm like, I know it's included in ours. Because we do actually have the benefit of the sick time payout at the end of the year and sick time payout upon retirement. These hours, should they not use them by midnight on the 31st for this, those hours go away. They will never count towards being paid out. Right? This is not a gift. It's a benefit because of the nature we do and the higher risk they're taking for exposure. So it's the exact same thing that the employees got. This one just says non-represented, covers Jeff and I should something happen to one of us. So it also got sent out to the employees. Jeff had nothing to say. He's got 21 days. He's got 20 more days to say something about it if he's supports or opposed.
I agree.
Support it. Any other questions? Otherwise, in 21 days, it does say April 1st. I guess I get to change the policy. I guess if somebody wants to include their motion to, I don't know that you need to retroactively make this happen. We didn't use it by April 1st, but to maybe make the effective date today and waive that 21 days.
Yeah, nobody's used it yet, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, you could change the date to today then, I guess, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think you can make that. I mean, it would be waiving our current policy, but I think you're the body that makes that decision, so.
And then strike the one line about the bargaining agreement since it doesn't apply?
Yeah, it doesn't apply to us, so we would be striking that.
Okay, Mike, you were gonna make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the coronavirus sick leave for this date, till the end of the year, starting from today's date. What is it, June 20th? Or May 20th?
May 21st?
May 21st.
May 21st, okay.
I'll second.
it.
Okay, any discussion further? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to approve the emergency paid sick leave for non-represented employees passes.
Perfect. And the next item really just addresses the MOU that was signed, and I just wanted to make sure because again that didn't appear in front of this body. There was input from this body, but there was no open discussion in saving the violations of open record or open meetings laws. So this body did have that discussion, but I wanted to make sure that you saw that. So again, that language is exactly the same as what's in here with the exception of it's 96 hours, not 80 hours. That was the only difference. Actually, I think there was I think I struck the work from home thing for our employees because they can't. But beyond that, I just wanted to make you aware that MOU was signed by myself and Terry as the chair. So was there any other discussions with that? Thank you very much for all of you who provided input on that. I know it got a little heated, I guess is a good word for it, with some different municipalities, but I think we did right by our employees.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, CARES COVID-19 stimulus funds?
Sure. So this is another one of those that I shared with you. It wasn't an open discussion, but it was again information sharing, but we didn't discuss it as a group. So part of the tax stimulus package, I don't know that I'm using all the appropriate words for it, but the tax stimulus package, and healthcare entities who bill Medicare received funding to help with COVID-related expenses. Now it came with some kind of, I don't know what to call them, well, it came with some conditions. Some of those conditions, so I reached out, I did pretty significant amount of research, reached out to our billing agency, looked at a couple of webinars from attorneys that I kind of go to on a pretty significant basis to kind of get some interpretation on what does this mean, because there was some concerns floating around some of the other chiefs at Dane counties. Some other municipalities actually did give this money back. What I got from most places was, yes, there's some conditions to it, but I certainly wouldn't give it back. What a lot of those strings were is essentially it has to be used for a COVID-related expense. And it was listed, there was a lot of examples of things it could be used for. The priceless one I liked is that it could not be used for, and I should have printed it off and brought it home because it was something about the procurement for chimpanzees and wildlife exotic animals.
Oh my God.
It said that. It
Must have
truly,
watched the Tiger Show.
Yep, it truly said the acquisition of chimpanzees. So not going to do that, but it did say we could use it on a handful of other things. Some of the things it did say we could use it for was essentially loss of run income. The challenge I found with that is there's like most government stuff, especially that's coming out here that's flying out fast and furious. It said that someday you'll be audited, but we don't know what that process is and we don't know when that day will be. So one of the challenges I found with, and here's where I started weighing a lot of stuff back and forth, we could probably, from showing that run income is down, I could probably relate some of that to COVID. I don't know how I prove that in an audit versus saying, well, this patient I would have transported, but I decided not to. To me, that's not good practice, right? If there's patients who we're going to transport if we should, and we're not if we shouldn't. So I struggled with using it for that. Other stuff I struggled with. So at this point, we've spent probably roughly about $400 would be a really good estimate on the additional. So we bought some foggers, we bought some sprayers, we've actually invested in a different cleaning agent out of Verona there. Foreign Technologies over Investment Court. For anyone I haven't shared this with, Larry Kinsman actually kind of reached out to us out of the blue, which was phenomenal. It is a disinfecting, deodorizing company. He's one of the engineers over there. So we've actually since switched over to that. It's actually much more environmentally friendly and much healthier than what we've been using. So essentially we used about $400 in expenses like that, which we're keeping track of. Should we be able to apply for FEMA reimbursement, I can apply it in there. Otherwise, we can take it out of some staff support or medical supplies, or it's $400. That still would have left us, as you saw, with about $20,000 worth of stuff or $23,600 that I can only use for COVID-related things. I can't use it to just go buy things. But one of the other items I had brought up, even was probably back in February or March, was the PAPRs, the powered air purifying respirators. Essentially, it's a hood. It's a sustainable breathing
Air. Yeah.
Yeah, I still think, as I brought up in our discussions and a couple people with some phone calls, I still think probably long term it would be a good investment for us. They run about $1,000 a harness, and then you have to buy the hoods for them. Again, doing some more research out there, Ford actually started turning one of their plants out and actually started making them, which looked like a great idea. Until as you read more into the fine lines, it said these are epidemic breathing apparatus. They're actually not designed to be more than a year before you throw them away. Like, well, that again kind of dodged that bullet of.
We've had ours for 3 to 5 years.
The ones from Ford Motor Company.
I don't know who it's from.
Oh, yeah, they make them that are long term, and I think that's where we need to go. It was just all of a sudden, we're seeing actually lots of these. I get them very weak if we've transformed our whole company over to make something now. Are you interested? We're actually sitting pretty good with stuff. But so when basically was looking at some PAPRs, as I had mentioned to you, probably about $12,000 to outfit every truck with 2 sets of them. Was still going to wait 3 to 4 months for them. And then I was still left with $12,000 that I could only use for COVID-related stuff.
That'll help with your firemen that wear or that have beards as well. That will fit in a PAPR.
Yes. So, and that's actually it's one of the things.
Yeah.
So the struggle with, or we have Kelly, who's like this big, struggles with getting a small N95 mask to fit. So that was one of the options I looked, although it's still, to me, $12,000 will get us up there. One of the other options is specifically lists that we've been talking about. I actually talked with Dr. Mancera about it last year. I put in a grant for it, is actually transport ventilators. It would be a tool that we could use for all patients. It actually provides us CPAP and BiPAP, which are less invasive airway maneuvers or less invasive airway procedures. And those come at a cost of about $12,000 per unit. I think that's what it was, came out to be. So that's the information I got that I had gotten sent out to you, that working with Dr. Mancera. So now that cost actually exceeds the $24,000 we have or received. But what many of the podcasts I look at that say, you know what, take the money, you can use it, it has to be for a COVID related purpose. If you ever get audited, you have to be able to produce a receipt. So when we started looking at, as opposed to trying to prove that I did, we lost this amount of income, to be able to prove that, here's $100 I spent on a fogger and $50 I spent on some stickers and those kinds of things. To me, to spend the money on one or two big purchases, I think is much more justifiable than trying to not commit fraud. So between the money we received for the COVID, there's money in donations account, and I can actually also use FAP funding because of an unanticipated equipment purchase. So I could actually still purchase 3 ventilators for our three frontline trucks and still not take any money out of our operating budget. So that's the discussion I put out there. So I did actually submit the order for the ventilators, knowing that this commission meeting was up. I can actually cancel that order anytime up to the time before they ship. I'm still looking at you said roughly at least minimum of 180 days before they ship. So we have a couple months yet before I even have that option. But I did submit the order just so I could get us on that list, because the longer we wait, the longer it's going to take. Other plus side of ventilators, it will require some pretty robust training on our part, because it is a pretty, it's a phenomenal intervention that we would have. It does take a lot of training, can actually do some harm. So we got to make sure that we train our staff right. But should Madison or Dane County have seen the ventilator shortage that they saw in some of the other big cities, we could have easily given or donated those ventilators to facilities who needed them. So this shortly after we saw that shortage, the State Department of Health actually did reach out to EMS services and just say, what do you have for ventilators and are you donating them? They didn't have anything, so it wasn't a big deal. But I think that's part of that regionalization of, we now have resources that will benefit us long term. We can use them on multiple different patients, and we become part of a regional asset. So what I guess I'm looking for all of you is probably an okay, or tell me what you think.
I think it's a fantastic idea.
I have a dumb question. What size are these? Suitcase size or
Smaller.
smaller?
Yeah, I was gonna do this too, but I'm like, that doesn't really help.
They're small enough to easily fit on each of the ambulances, and they're kind of
Yeah, specifically designed as a transport vent. I'm just trying to even think like shoebox size. It's a little bit bigger than, it's like a box of cereal almost.
Okay.
It's a family-sized box of Chex Mix.
Okay. I personally think it's a great idea. I don't know. Anybody else cover for
Good
that?
with it.
Okay.
I agree.
Again, I think the peppers are an investment for the long term, but I think it's easier to me to find $10,000 in a line item in a budget sometime than it is to try to find $34,000 later.
Yep.
Okay. I think we want to cover all bases. Does anybody want to make a motion to move forward with that?
I would love to make a motion to move forward with the 3 respirators.
I'd
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries to go ahead and purchase the ventilators.
Okay.
Thanks for your leadership in that, Pat.
Thank you.
And let's see, contracted EMS services for Alliant Energy Center.
Sure. So this is actually the line item for I really called the whole meeting for tonight anyway. So again, thank you for all of your time for meeting with us tonight. So I was approached about 2 weeks ago now by the new director of the Alliant Energy Center. So if you don't know, the Alliant Energy Center and that whole campus out there actually resides in the town of Madison. knowing we know that, the town of Madison is looking, well, we know in the fall of 2022 or January 1st of 2023, there's a portion of the town of Madison that'll come to Fitchburg as of this moment in time. I believe I can share, it's out there in the public, that there's still some active discussions about moving that date to be sooner. Those decisions are being made way above my head. Involved in them by all means, but that process and when that process occurs is occurring above my head. The Alliance Energy Center, however, is not what part of the property that will be coming to Fitchburg. However, the town of Madison is having some challenges because of their nature of their future, having some challenges staffing their own fire and EMS apparatus, and had formally essentially told the Alliance Energy Center we aren't going to be able to support the events occurring at the Alliance Energy Center, which currently are none, which is fine. But I was reached out then to the Alliance Energy Center to me, is Fitch-Rona interested in supporting first aid and EMS support for the Alliance Energy Center? So I reached out to a couple of different people to find out what does that entail, what dates and times. Really specifically reached out to Chief Davis of the City Madison Fire Department and said, in 2 years from now, the Alliance Energy Center is yours. So I don't even want to travel down that road in 2 years from now to you and say, we're going to take this back. He prefaced it with all of it is as long as I am chief, right? So always subject to change. But the City of Madison Fire Department also covers all those UW events. So it covers the Cole Center, covers Camp Randall. As you can imagine, the challenges they face now, something happening at the Alliance Energy Center and the Camp Randall, trying to staff all those events. So kind of got an informal from Chief Davis saying, you know what, go ahead and proceed with what you're interested in. So for about the last week or so, I've been talking with, again, Carrie Meyer up at Dane County. She's the director of Dane County. She's not the director of Dane County Emergency Management. She works in the EMS office. Charles Tubbs is the director of Emergency Management. Carrie works under him, but reached out to her as well because it's a county entity, or the Alliance Energy Center group, to see what their interest was. Before I do stepping into those again, their interest in managing an EMS. So the Dane County EMS actually does have an EMS license as a service, as a non-transporting service is what they exist as. So even if they do take over services, they don't have an ambulance. So when Alan Jackson came to the Alliance Energy Center last fall, they don't have an ambulance to park there. So what I'm looking for this body is, I've crunched a bunch of numbers. Essentially, what I kind of came up with really rough was we essentially increase what we charge for an ambulance standby. And put in all the dates that they ran, all the hours they ran. We charge what we charged. Or I proposed to them, we could actually fund, right, because this can't cost the district anything. So what it would do would be to cover the cost of staff there. One of my proposals would actually be to, again, all of this is really proposals, but I'm presenting it to you kind of how I've worked it through in my brain, and I wouldn't create another lieutenant's position, but essentially would have to be done through the union, creating a special events paramedic who would assist me or do all of the kind of coordination and recruiting and scheduling and verifying licensure of staff there. So even if I paid them that 7% that we pay the lieutenants, or paid that person 7%, Fitch-Rona could actually still make a small amount of money on this to help cover probably what would be required for additional equipment purchases, or even the rough number I put together was almost about $10,000, which isn't nothing to cough at, but it's not a huge amount either, right? Just enough the program would run itself, right? Can't cost the district anything. One of the downsides that kind of working through this is Fitch-Rona itself with my current staff, we also can't support this. It's events almost every single weekend, be it, we said, I don't necessarily need 2 people in an ambulance sitting at the model railroad show. I'm sure it gets pretty violent and hectic out there, the garden show and person, but the horse show, now that's an ambulance and 6 people. So I've got that data, I've got that number. It would require more work. hiring into side of things and talked with Dane County. I've actually talked with a couple of neighboring services, said, do you believe you have people who would be interested in essentially working for Fitch-Rona? They're licensed with me, they're credentialed with us. I am paying them all as LTEs. My own people would have the opportunity to work those events as overtime as well. Or we can set something up very similar. City of Madison has a special events kind of rider on their contract. Whether we pick a different pay scale for that as well. Lots of moving parts to this. But before I got super deep in this, I wanted to make sure that this body was supportive of me moving forward to investigate some options. Or if you really think, that is not the mission of Fitch-Rona, to support an area that will never, well, I won't say never, but is not part of the Fitch-Rona EMS district. What are your thoughts?
I hope we would be more open to helping our neighbors than just thinking about ourselves. But like you were saying, we have to make sure that we have the resources and the ability to help. I'd like to see our name out there.
And that's one of the plus side as well. I brought this all to our staff to say, are you interested? And of course, I got lots of people who said, yeah, I'm interested, and I've heard that before. I've got lots of people who said, this sounds like a great idea. I like my weekends off. Like I said, so it would require more people than what we currently have. I don't think it's insurmountable. And kind of talking, as you mentioned, with our neighboring services, if Fitch-Rona takes the pass on this, somebody still has to do this. So somebody else is still going to have to take this bullet and go with it. Anything else from anybody?
Well, quick question. Would one of the standby ambulances be used then?
Yes.
You were thinking?
So part of the city of Madison would still have to sign off on anything I put together, as well as the Department of Health. I did talk with Dr. Mancera about this. He was open to it. Because our operational plan with the state of Wisconsin says I have 3 911 ambulances on the street at all times. I cannot take a 911 ambulance and put it at the Alliant Energy Center. It has to be an additional truck. Now, that's not to say they're working those kind of maneuvering those ways around of, though it's not really in the city of Madison, we were doing a first aid thing, could I call a Fitch-Rona ambulance to come transport a patient? To me, that's a little gray. But we most likely wouldn't see a huge investment in run income or call volume out of this, right?
Patrick, you said we're gonna make $10,000. Is that a year?
Well, if it was 2020, no, absolutely not. But based off of all of the events they did in 2019, and and that was raising it to like $65 an hour is what I normally we charge 50. Like I gotta cover more costs than that. 50, what we currently charge for our current places is $50 an hour. That strictly covers cost.
And you said our full-time paramedics could get paid overtime to go do this?
So anything above their 40-hour work week is time and a half. So this would all be time and a half from them. But when we figure out that $50 an hour, that includes, we'd go, I don't want to call worst case scenario, but we go to the extreme to make sure we cover our costs. That is our top end employee making time and a half. So even on current events that we do, I think Dale is the one at the top right. Dale's been here the longest, so Dale's at the top end of that scale. If Dale works that event, we come out ahead. We break even. If any one of my brand new hires do it, we make very little. If I can get an LTE to do it, I make a little bit more. So it really comes out in the wash based on, it costs me a little bit more for Dale to do it. It costs me a little bit less for LTE to do it. But there's such a mixture of it, it comes out to be a net.
Is there some sort of charge for like equipment for the use of the rescue for the hourly rate there? I think Madison, like when they figure special events, it's some of it's time and a half with all the benefits rolled up, and then if they're using an engine or a ladder, there's a certain hourly rate for that too.
So the only thing we have in there, and this may be something that we should look at, is we charge, we call it and Brian set it up, he calls it a $50 mobilization fee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $100 an hour per whatever. So that's an ambulance, which includes 2 paramedics. It's a bike team, which is 2 bike medics. So what it is that $50 an hour kind of, because they're coming in about a half an hour before their shift. They're probably sticking around about a half hour afterwards. So that $50 mobilization fee was paying for gas plus prep time. And then the $50 an hour was truly their time there. So we don't charge anything beyond $100 an hour it costs for our crew to sit there. And it's probably something we looked about 2 years ago to make sure that that $50 an hour was still covering the majority of our staff, and it was. So it's probably something we should be looking at again.
I think if you're gonna have an ambulance there, you ought to be looking at some sort of fee for equipment, because there's wear and tear on that. I mean, you're covering the manpower, but you're really not covering the equipment.
So now if we do transport somebody, we end up charging for the transport. If we do treat for somebody, we do charge for their treatment on scene.
Okay, it's somebody who can't pay. Do we end up pick the county? I'm going to say the Dane County Fair. And grandma's there watching her granddaughter show her prize pig. And she gets sick, and we get stuck with Medicaid covering it, which means we get nothing.
Sure.
Are we going to take it in the shorts? Are we going to end up losing money? I don't have a problem doing this as long as we don't end up losing money.
What we would charge the Alliant Energy Center is for the cost of our personnel. So we assessed grandma, who you just gave me the example there. We took her blood pressure. We put her on the heart monitor. We assessed her and said, you know what, you're hot. Here's an ice pack. Go sit in your car and go home and watch yourself. The only thing we're out is the cost of an ice pack. It's covering the cost is the personnel cost. If we use something, if we treat somebody and we transport them, then it's treated like every other patient that we treat and transport. So we're out a box of Band-Aids is what we're out.
But if we transport them and don't get paid,
It's just like every other. It's like every other patient
that.
we transport and don't get paid on.
Well, we still get paid for the staff, right?
Yes.
Because the contract would pay for them even when they're transporting, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So
Yep.
if we did transport, we might actually get the transportation fee
Yep.
plus the salary covered.
Yeah.
I kind of share what JR was saying. I think it might be good to try to build in some kind of equipment recovery cost or something
Sure.
like that, wear and tear or something like that.
And that $65 an hour was purely I threw it in a spreadsheet and said what is my minimum. What is my minimum? You know, I haven't done really like this big cost analysis to it. It was, these are the events, these are the total numbers of hours. If I charge them $50 an hour, what is the outcome? If I charge it $65, so I mean, you could easily raise or lower that hourly rate to absorb some of that cost as well.
Well, I'm kind of hearing general support for it, so I think you're just looking for kind of to go ahead and proceed with it and bring some stuff back to us.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm looking for. It doesn't need to be a motion. This could all, I could meet with Carrie in the county, and they could actually say, yeah, we're interested in doing this. Brent could be talking to 3 other people who are going to come back and say, yeah, we'll do it for free, and we're out. So, yeah, this is really just I didn't want to start pursuing something to bring it back to this group who said, you know what, we need to support Fitchburg and Verona, the town of Verona, and you're stretching yourself too thin. And no. So, but yeah, to me, this would be though it would be treated like a special event, which means it doesn't necessarily have to be approved by this body. I think this is a big enough thing. This would, how it would proceed, I think that should be approved by this body. The next thing that's even scheduled at the Alliant Energy Center is the World Dairy Expo in the end of September, October, which I don't know if Mike, you want to tell me, my gut tells me that that's not going to happen.
Right now, I'd go there's a 50-50 chance it will. Because people come from all over the world and hopefully things will be calmed down by then. But you never know.
Good.
Question for you,
I
Pam.
hope so too.
How
Yes.
much extra time and effort is it gonna take for you to deal with this on an annual basis? And do you want that kind of headache?
Well, that was a huge part of my hesitancy to begin with, and that's why, as I mentioned before, what I would foresee or what I would propose is that I don't want to call it a promotion, but pay an additional duty fee or time to one of our own medics who would be interested in, who would manage this.
Doing the special events person, yeah.
Yep. So they would have access, and we have the infrastructure in place. I mean, we have scheduling software in place. We have HR. We've got pay. We've got. So I would promote somebody or assign this to somebody. They would do the scheduling. You know, obviously it needs to come with some oversight and some guidance, but I'm going to let them take it and run with it. So it would add, hopefully, right, in theory, very little of my time or Jeff's time. If we didn't have that person, I would say kind of this is a no. Because to me, it's going to take a lot of, at least for the first couple of years, it's going to take some work to get nice and smooth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest hurdles that we would have initially up front is it's hiring staff and getting them trained and credentialed and all of the stuff that goes along with hiring. But I think once that's done, the ongoing hiring probably is minimal.
Full-time staff, are you talking, Jeff?
No, I'm talking if there's additional staff that are hired as part of the LTE pool to cover these as well. I mean, you can ask Patrick, I don't think that we could cover it with our current full-time staff. We would have to put additional staff on, and that would probably be the biggest challenge we would have up front.
He would be open to our current staff to participate in. To me, there's more questions of like, now do all special events fall under this same group of people? You know, do I give first preference to my LTEs? One of the discussions we've had with this is the reason the town of Madison was able to do this fairly inexpensive was because they had interns. So they could throw EMT basic interns out there for $10-20 an hour. We don't have interns. Now, potentially, one of the things as some of the staff has talked to, you know, this could potentially fund an internship program. And now I do have a source of staff that could go out there. But it's also, do I necessarily need a paramedic to work the Model Railroad show? Probably not. So we could hire EMTs to work the Model Railroad show. You know, we make sure that their skills are up, their credentials are up, that they're running with another service. But now we have had an EMT out there that we can pay and give a little bit more profit to subsidize or support another program within Fitch-Rona that continues to pay for itself. Or do we stick with paramedics? Again, lots of moving parts. This has kind of been a topic. I've got lots of people with some pretty good ideas. But again, wanted to just bring it to you. Didn't want to take up a ton of your time tonight, but wanted to make sure you were okay with this before I moved on.
Is there an exit strategy for you if it pans out to be a real nuisance?
To me, there would always be something in that contract that says I got 90 days or whatever to get out.
60 days. Back to Madison.
Yeah, that's right. It's not my problem anymore.
Well, Patrick, I think you have our nod to kind of go ahead and proceed and bring something back if it pans out for further discussion.
Okay.
Let's see, other business. Anybody have any other business they want to bring up?
I just have a question for Mike. I'm assuming the March drills were canceled, or did they go ahead?
No. I was absolutely not canceling them.
So that was pre-COVID, huh? I couldn't remember the date.
It was March 14th, and it was the time when everything was starting to shut down, and all these people showed up laughing about it. Now, just so you know, they did social distance in the classroom, kind of.
Even that early? Huh.
Well, they weren't on top of each other, but it wasn't perfect, let me tell you, but nobody was really too worried about it. And no one's ever got sick from this class. There were 19 firefighters there. There were 0 from Fitchburg, Fitch-Rona EMS, and Verona Fire. We had a complete skunk on it. But the ones that showed up were very happy to be there because Farm Bureau has pictures. Well, I took all the pictures, but there are just oodles of pictures of the way they destroyed that equipment. They got to learn a lot. Kelcher Implement gave us their forklift so we could stage things with it, and then they could go about doing stuff with it like it was hooked to a machine, and it was a smashing success by every one of the people that was there.
Awesome. Great to hear.
Yeah, super. Well, next meeting will be June 18th, either Zoom or at the Verona Fire Station, depending on how things pan out.
Yeah, I will let you know. So, yep, that'll be the budget presentation, the 2021 budget presentation. So
Okay.
if there's any, I kind of have already gotten the annual guidance from both all 3 municipalities saying, don't spend any money for 2021.
I wonder why.
Yeah, good news for a month from now, I think we'll actually, short of wages and benefits, which I can't control, their contractual, I think we'll do actually okay, probably better than we have in the past.
So if we do meet in person, will there be a Skype option? Because I'm hoping the states are opening and I'm getting the heck out of here. But I'd be happy to call. I'd be happy to call in.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
'Cause you need you'll need a quorum, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
And as long as we're approved to do this, and we don't, there's no real reason to need to meet in person. There was some topics I was anticipating, I think in June that were going to be more beneficial to meet in person than Skype or a Zoom. But it kind of remains to be seen about those. So
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be a Zoom. It could just be a call in.
yeah, that'd be fine too. So I will let you know about a week ahead of time, and yeah, I'm all about staying at home in the evening as well. So
Yeah.
or kick the dog and the cat out, and we're good. So thank you very much to Chad and Andrew from Fact TV for helping support this tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, this worked out pretty well, actually. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
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 The motion passes. Thank you for your time and